Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. All Media Reviews podcast number 4, part 3 of the 2016-2017 albums of the year. I'm going to try to get through it all. I can't promise I'll get through the rest of it all, the top 10 albums on my list, which I posted over a month ago now, or about a month ago, on the blog. So number 10, Steven Wilson's album To the Bone. Yeah, I do really like this record. I didn't really listen to it that much at first. I listened to some of the singles. I think, it was like Permeating, which is kind of the token, most accessible, almost overtly pop song. But I think it was really well written. It's catchy. The video, I got mixed feelings about. I guess it was eerily similar to another video from a guy I saw on a message board from a few years ago. But it's really catchy, and maybe the catchiest song Steven Wilson's ever written, and I'm a sucker for it. So I really like that. The title track, which is the first song, also catchy, and also kind of poppy. I mean, this album has a mixture of pop and prog. The thing is, it's being almost marketed as his influence from 80s pop specifically, and him going pop. But actually, the truth is, it has a great blend, and that's why it ended up at number 10. I did raise it to the end of the year just because it was better than I realized, and also again it's a product of the year to an extent. But I'd say that it's my second favorite Steven Wilson solo record. Although I really do like Hand Cannot Erase too. It's a little better than Hand Cannot Erase. It's not really conceptual, but Pariah is another song I like. The Same Asylum as Before. That one's very reminiscent of Porcupine Tree. And let's see here, Detonation. And of course Nanette, the vocalist from Hand Cannot Erase, is also at points on this album. So, yeah, I mean, I bought it on vinyl. Refuge is another one. I don't hate any songs, really. There's no songs that really bug me. And I think I'm just going to listen to it more. And like I said, it's probably my second favorite Steven Wilson solo record to The Raven Refused to Sing. So I think he achieved the pop sort of direction he was aiming at points for this record. I don't know in terms of success, commercial success and like radio success he really had, if that was what he wanted. But anyway, number 9, Anakdota's Overloading, the debut album from this sort of Israeli jazz influenced pop prog project. Let me go back and see if I can find the track list, of course. But this was kind of a somewhat a long time coming, a little bit like the Mutemath record and some other albums. It came out late in November of last year, so it's a 2016 Christian calendar date, but it's on my list, of course, because it came out after my deadline from last year. But Girl Next Door, Staying Up Late, those are two, and Late, those are probably 3 of the biggest highlights. One More Day, the first song, Different Views. It's very, I've almost repeated it ad nauseum in videos and some points on the blog. It's very, like I said, very Gentle Giant-like, although not as crazy Gentle Giant-like as Mutemath, but they do get kind of crazy at times. Some of the instrumentation is very, at least use of on-time signatures, and very busy. But I like the pop element, I like the vocal style, and the use of piano especially, and very much almost like Israel's answer to the Reign of Kindo in some ways. And it's also a side project of, I think it's a singer or one of the members, maybe more than one member of a band called Project RNL, although I've never fully invested the time into that band, but they're also a progressive rock project, maybe not quite as jazzy as Anakdota. So Anakdota is Overloading at number 9. Number 8, Godspeed You Black Emperor's album Luciferian Towers, and my feeling on this record, I mean, like the Over record and some other, and even Steven Wilson to a point, I was almost surprised how much I enjoyed this album, because the last 2 albums, especially the last one, but the last 2 albums were kind of more hit and miss or uneven, I guess would be the best way to describe it. The best pieces are great, the classic Godspeed crescendos and the builds and stuff like that, and the use of chamber instruments. But the other droney kind of pieces, I just don't need to hear. And this album, there's only one piece that I found to be having that kind of droney, sludgy composition. I think that was Famine. The rest of it, while it's not overwhelming, it is kind of great in that it's less is more. Undoing the Luciferian Towers and then the Boss's Hang suite and the Anthem for No State. I think it's the second Anthem for No State part that's just gorgeous. Up there, right, with the sort of Skinny Fist stuff, and from a couple of years ago, some of the best pieces on, I forget the name of their record from 2000, I want to say 2012. Anyway, yeah, Godspeed You Black Emperor, kind of claiming their throne again as the kings of post-rock. I mean, the Nordic Giants album finished pretty high on my list. It's almost a toss-up, but I just kept on going back to the Godspeed record here and there and just thinking I wasn't going to like it as much as I did, and I did. They really captured a lot of what I love, and it wasn't too long, and again, it only had one drone piece, which really completely worked for me. I would love Godspeed to death if you just get rid of the drone music. They would be one of my top 20 bands of all time, maybe, but they do like to do that stuff, so that's why their music is kind of hit and miss. But this particular record was more hit than miss, and that's why it's number 8, Luciferian Towers. Number 7, The Optimist from Anathema. Maybe their most overt concept album in a long time, and the follow-up to kind of like a follow-up to their last record. It's in a lot of ways it's musically still similar to their last 3 records since they joined K-Scope, I think it is. But let's see, is this the album? There it is. However, the concept is it's a follow-up to, I think it's Find Day to Exit conceptually. But I wrote a blog entry over the summer that Endless Ways hit me like a ton of bricks. While that doesn't differ that much than some other pieces they've done on from Weather Systems to their other couple, We're Here Because We're Here, and the last record, which Satellites, Distant Satellites, it just still works. And Lee, what's her last name? Lee Douglas just has a gorgeous vocal part in that song, and just her voice soars, and just the crescendo that I'm a sucker for from the most recent Anathema records. A lot of people were critical of it, thinking it was uneven. They think that they had too many different kinds of styles, and it wasn't as good as their last couple records. And while I might agree with that, I still really loved too much of it. And it also, when I got into it, and it came out not that long before, was right when I moved, and Endless Ways and the whole record kind of gave me this sort of bookend or emotional sort of transition for me, because I just moved out of my apartment that I'd been in for almost 9 years, and I was making sort of a leap of faith in a small sense, and this album totally captured, that song in this album captured what I sort of was feeling between Wildfires. I mean, it's melancholy. Let's see here, San Francisco, Springfield, the title track. They have some jazz elements in it. The vocal, there's some different vocal parts from the two Kavanaugh brothers, but I think Lee Douglas actually might be the MVP on this record, though. The 3 or 4 songs she sings lead on, or she sings on, totally worked for me. And like I said, Endless Ways, leaving it behind, but Endless Ways is just an absolute masterpiece track, a top 10 track in their history, and I wrote that back in June, so. Okay, so that's number 7, Anathema's The Optimist. Number 6, Pain of Salvation's album, In the Passing Light of Day. And this album, I had the similar feeling to a lot of people that helped us to be a return to form in some ways. Although I'm a huge fanboy of Pain of Salvation, and I recently revisited the Rose Salt albums, and I'm starting to like those albums a little more. But this, in some ways, sounds like not like Road Salt, but Scar Sick, but a little more polished. But it also does channel a lot of the stuff from the earlier records, Remedy Lane and The Perfect Element especially. My favorites would be On a Tuesday, probably Tongue of God, Reasons. Reasons is the one which got, and Meaningless, which of course their guitarist, their second guitarist, their new guitarist, Ragnar, wrote a lot of that because that was from his previous band. They just rearranged it, and he does the lead vocals, or a lot of the vocals. And of course, part of it reminds me, there's a song on here that reminds me of, I think it's The Taming of a Beast, of a Cloud Cult track called Sleepwalker. But I still love this Pain of Salvation song, The Taming of a Beast. Angels on Broken Wings is nice. Full Throttle Tribe is definitely a highlight. That's got a really good riff and good energy to it. The only song that I think, I still like it, but I think is overrated by the fans is the closing title track. And Pain of Salvation have a track record of great closing tracks, and I'm not, like Mew, I don't know if I'm as crazy about the title track to this album, The Passing Light Day, as other people are, but it's still good, but it's not. I mean, I'm not overwhelmed by it like the title track, "The Perfect Element," or "Beyond the Pale," or even "Enter Rain" from Scar 6. So, anyway, number 6, "Pain of Salvation's" in the Passing Light Day. Number 5, 22. Finally, after many years, they finally put out their follow up to the great debut album. This album's called "You Are Creating Limb 1." And weird. Okay, so and it's not that long, and it's only part 1 or limb 1. There's going to be a limb 2, I guess. But crazy sort of prog rock, catchy, poppy, schizophrenic prog rock. But it's accessible enough. I don't understand why more people haven't caught on to 22, aside from a couple message boards. But the best songs, I'd put some of the parts. They did a video for that. "You Are Creating," the title track, "Inspect." You know, it's kind of a pretty much consistent record, but it's only like 35 minutes long. But at one point, I thought this might have been my album of the year. I was addicted to it for a couple of weeks. I still really like it, although I think it's a little short. And I think it kind of, is eventually just kind of, okay, that's that. And I'm kind of hoping for more music from them. So, but it finished number 5 for a reason, because it really doesn't have a track I would skip. So, number 5, 22, "You Are Creating Limb 1. Number 4, Bent Knee, "Land Animal." Their 4th album in like 6 years or something. They're almost as prolific as King Gizzard. This is a long record, but most of the records are long. But I really enjoy pretty much every song on here. The best moments are probably the title track, the sort of echoing vocal part that goes into a string part, the kind of sad, melancholy section. But the schizophrenic moments in this album are totally work for me. "Terror Bird," the first track. Let's see, "Time Dear," "Holy Ghost," "Inside In." I mean, they use strings, they use vocal harmonies, they use piano, they use a lot of percussion, and they're just a crazy technical band, but they seem to find a way to make it work somehow. Unlike some bands are technical for the sake of technical. So, but anyway, that's number 3. This was the number 4 rather. This is probably my favorite. Bent Knee, I became a big fan of this year, and I don't know if Land Animal is my favorite album from theirs, but I think they're kind of like Ocean Size, some other bands where they're just kind of putting out record after record that's just consistently good. I guess we'll see if time will tell if there's better record where Land Animal compares to the rest of the records. The record from last year, I was in my top 10 as well. So in 2016. Anyway, number 3, Everything, A Fever Dream. And this is, again, like their 4th record in less than a decade. Because their first album came out, and they're a British band. Have always reminded me of Foals and a little bit of Block Party, but they really just have very good songwriting chops. The title track remains my favorite on this album. Their last album, Get to Heaven, it's become almost a masterpiece. And it finished in my top 5, I believe, 2 years ago, but 2015. And this album, I listened to it a fair amount. It doesn't have any songs at the end that I kind of feel like are added on, but at the same time, it doesn't completely grab me the way that maybe their last album did, but it's close. It's damn close. Because the first 5 or 6 songs still all work. Night of the Long Knives, Can't Do, Desire, Big Game, Good Shot, Good Solar. That they did a video for that. That song's really grown on me. It's really catchy. And the title track, I've also always think of Fiacra's song Koi at points, but it's that echoing sort of fever dream that just hits me over the head. I can't get it out of my head after I listen to it. It's dreamy, and it's catchy, and it's mesmerizing at points. So, number 3, Everything, A Fever Dream. Number 2, Small League Sink Ships, Golden Calf. Well, their last record was the first 5-star record I've had in many years, so they had a lot to kind of follow up to, and they kind of did in a lot of ways. And maybe I've become a bit of a fanboy for them, and just love that record so much that I knew this was going to be something I'd love. Their sound, they just have this unbelievable way to sort of combine quirkiness and emotion and textures with melody. I don't know how they do it, but they seem to do it with this record, Golden Calf, and the last record, Face Yourself and Remove Your Sandals. So, I really enjoy this record. I'm trying to pull the track list up, and I'm, let's see here. Creep In, the first song is catchy and memorable. Psychotic Opera is sort of a sweet, not counterpoint. Drug Lord is one of my favorites. That song's continued to grow on me. Dancing Devil was the first single. That song I've not gotten sick of. The video's very surreal and arty. And Airplane Junkyard. I mean, it fits as almost as a sequel to Face Yourself and Remove Your Sandals, but it's not as long. It's not quite as prog rock or even post rock. It's more sort of subtle. But when you've listened to it, you're like, I want to hear more of it again, and then you'll hear new things about it in a subtle way. So, yeah, Small League Sing Ships really can't do no wrong for me right now, and I can't wait to see what they do next. I'm still waiting for my vinyl to come in the mail, but I got the 7-inch single, which is a song that wasn't even on here, which I did a video for, which I'm blanking at the moment. Anyway, the top album that takes the spot in 2016-2017 is Mutemath's album, Play Dead. And why that is, I think part of it was it pretty much didn't have a weak track, and the last two tracks, it flows really well, and the last two tracks, Achilles Heel, Marching to the End, are melancholy, and I'm a sucker for that. It's a little bit like Anathema, but it worked even better as a whole. And Hit Parade, the opening track, is very good. It reminds me more of, I like their last record, Vitals, but it reminds me more of the previous record, Odd Soul. I absolutely was a sucker for the energy and the funkiness and the kind of drums and the bass on that album. And Hit Parade especially captured a lot of that. And there's some other songs that do the same. Stroll On, Break the Fever, Place on Hold. You know, I mean, War. It's very sad because the fact the drummer Darren King and the bassist and at times guitarist Roy Cardenas this is their last album with the band, and so I guess I kind of have a sentimental or nostalgic and fanboy element to loving this record more than I would if I didn't know that, knowing this is sort of a last hurrah other than the singer. We'll see what happens with Mutemath. They may be done. They may reinvent themselves. It may be the Paul Meany band, but this last album, Play Dead, totally worked for me. I mean, I didn't mind the electronics. A lot of fans did, and I think there's some of it still from the Vitals sign, which I still liked, but I think it was a great blend of that, even some of their earlier records. So, yeah, Mutemath takes the #1 spot, Play Dead, for 2016-2017. Thank you for listening. Please comment, like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And just to announce that I'm going to definitely be working on the 2017-2018 anticipation and stuff I've already heard. I got a bunch of records. There's 6 or 7 records, including EPs, that have already come out. And I'll be doing some podcasts about that stuff for sure. Just as I've done in the blog, I've posted stuff. So, great year to look forward to. Already some really good records I can already put up there. And we'll see what happens with the rest of the year and what doesn't come out, what comes out. You know, it's definitely a lot to talk about for me to babble on about because I take in so much music. But again, it's been this year was, again, as I said in the first podcast, was not terrible, but it just didn't have the kind of like memorable album that I just kind of couldn't stop listening to for months or even weeks. Mutemath just kind of by default was the best complete record that I got attached to, but I mean in other years I don't know if Play Dead would have ended up even in my top 5. It might have, but I would put it maybe on number 3 on their catalog, 2 or 3. But you know, I'm still happy that it came to #1, and they obviously made it. And we'll see if some of these albums that I haven't got a chance to listen to, and some that weren't even on my list, could end up, you know, historically being records I love more from this year. But for now, this is the way it works for me. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.